Putting in progress.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Jensen, I'll kick it over to you.
What's the question? What we're talking about? You're muted, bitch. Such a good start.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to a special episode. Oh boy. Wow.
It's a court-martial offense.
Hold on. I have a couple other things I needed to talk about. Oh, yeah.
And we lost Jensen.
He just needed a break for a second. I don't know. He might be in there for a bit. Maybe.
No, sorry.
There you go.
I have to go to the downstairs one because the upstairs one's not working. So I have to like sprint around the house.
Dang, you move fast, man.
I'm
Well, thanks, Jensen, for that enlighten. Nope, I don't like that either.
Thanks, JB. I don't know why I'm thanking you. It was a whole segment for all of us. That's a lot of W's.
All right. Well, while our furry little friend collects himself.
Oh, man.
No. God damn it. Give me a minute.
Damn, it's rusty.
Recording in progress.
Our last ask.
Last
ask. Writing.
Take us home, Jensen.
What?
Take us home.
Go to good progress. Absolutely fantastic.
Welcome in, everybody, to episode 81 of the Plastic Posse podcast, sponsored by Tankcraft. So first of all, most of us are all here together again. TJ had some family commitments, but other than that, I have got the whole gang here with me today. A lucky guy. Here in Utah, I have Doug Smith. Doug, how you been doing, man?
I'm very good and very tired lately, but I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good. I also have on the West Coast, Mr. Grant Mayberry. How you doing, Grant?
You're doing great. It's extremely motivated and ready to do some more work.
That's good to hear. Moving over to the great state of Colorado, Mr. John Benani, unattended himself. How are you doing, JV?
I'm doing well. I'm unchaperoned, unattended, but I'm here to have fun.
That's good. Across the pond, we have his lordship, the Duke of Awesome. Jensen, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Still riding the wave of post SMC. But yeah, I'm cracking. I'm good.
TJ couldn't join us tonight, but you will hear from him whether you want to or not later in the SMC summary segment. So let's kind of go back around the room again, as traditionally we do. Let's start with Mr. Benani. John, what have you been working on? What's on the bench?
Well, you definitely skipped Jensen there when we went backwards, but let's see, what am I working on? You know, I'm in that post-show high still from SMC. And with that post-show high comes just a lot of motivation, a lot of dedication too. So I've been really working on a Panzer IV. For some reason, I got bit by the bug to build a Panzer IV. And specifically, this is an SMC result where at the show, I bought RT dioramas at the port kit, which is a giant side of a ship. And then it's got a little crane and some other stuff. So I decided to recreate a scene, not one that it's going to battle, but one if it was being unloaded here in the States. And I chose the Panzer IV Aus G, which was captured in Tunisia, I believe. And there's some really good pictures of it. But I want to do a diorama similar to that. That's the big thing I'm going to be working on right now. And then it goes without saying, I have 2 facades to finish. One I started before the kickoff timeline, so that's a key one to finish. And then obviously the other one we're going to be working on this weekend when you and Doug come visit.
Heck yeah, we are. Well, Jensen, let's make things right and go back to you. What have you been working on since SMC?
Well, I'll go back to the last recording when I was talking about the 190 from Border Models. That's been boxed up and put away for now. One of those, went to SMC, got really inspired by figures, armor, dioramas, vignettes, and all that stuff. So when I came back, I wanted to work on similar things that really caught my eye. But we've also got the AK Facade group build going on. And I was like, you know what? I primed it just before going away to SMC, came back and I've started working on that. Really enjoying that. It's nice to actually just pick something up and get a paintbrush out and just start painting and getting results very quickly. And I think that's what I needed, something that brings those quick results. Got all the brickwork done, the wood painted on it, all that stuff. It's weathered down a bit. Started painting some individual bricks to, kind of differentiate how it all looks. Got the grout all oiled in. Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, it's no John Banani piece, but it's getting there. It's hard to match the level of JB, but I don't want to copy, because I was planning on putting pigeons on mine, and I know JV's doing that as well. So I just can't.
No, do it, man. Do it.
It's fine. There'll be British pigeons. They'll be different. So yeah, just working on the facade. And in my head, I've got a million armor pieces that I'm planning, but really thinking like vignettes and dioramas, because they're always fun to do.
So the question that we all have, Jensen, us and half of the posse out there, is why didn't you take your ambulance to SMC?
I have a few excuses, because that was brought up at SMC that I should have brought it. One, I traveled with only a backpack. I made travel as cheap as humanly possible. That vignette's quite flimsy. I would not have wanted to get that damaged, because it's one of my most proud possessions in the cabinet. It would have been great. I still personally don't think it would have done anything at the show on the competition exhibition. In hindsight, I would have taken it, but yeah, it was just transporting it. If I took like a big actual carry-on case and I could have packed it properly, then fine. But it was all very light traveling for me this year.
Okay, so we're gonna chalk this one up to weight, huh?
Yes, weight and size.
Weight and size. Okay. Moving on over to Grant. Grant, what have you been working on? What's on your bench?
Well, I went to MMSI a week ago. So it was the 20th and 21st with Scott and Gary Baker and Aaron and a whole bunch of other people. Super motivated from that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I came back, started working on figures. Super motivated, seeing some of the stuff that was, not some of the stuff, all of the stuff that was there. It was breathtaking. John Rosen Grant, Mike Blank, Gary Baker, Penny Meyer, the list goes on. Andy Gold, Greg, Jose, the list goes on and on and on and on. The fantastic things, self-sculpted, not sculpted, built, 1/16 scale, sculpted paratrooper on a sculpted horse. Come on now. So I've been really motivated about it. So I finished a Warhammer or Age of Sigmar figure. And then I also finished up yesterday a model seller 1/35th scale German tank officer or tank soldier from World War I. So that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Sounds like you've been really busy. Liking that a fantasy figure you've been posting pictures of. That looks really good.
Thank you.
Doug, what have you been working on? What's been on the bench?
Well, the last few days, just messing around. I've been playing with it's a Warhammer. It's an Age of Sigmar kit. My son wanted to split the Stormdrake Guard. That's a pair of dragons with riders. I'm doing one, he's doing the other. So I was working on that over the weekend. Before that, finally wrapped up the TIE Interceptor, everything but the stand. I need to build a base for it, because I just don't want to keep it on the basic Bandai base, but that's something I'm playing around with. But before that, I was doing what could have been vignettes or backgrounds, or I was working on stonework, using foam to make stone, but this was for reptile enclosures. I know everybody loves to hear me talk about reptiles, but for my friend at Clint's Reptiles, he had his grand opening finally after years of actually being open but not being complete. We put a lot of work in, and I did the backgrounds for a bunch of his enclosures, 4 foot by 2 foot enclosures, a couple of 2 foot by 2 foot enclosures, made it all look like Southern Utah Red Rocks. And so it's all installed, and the grand opening is passed, and now I'm ready to focus on models again.
Nice. Also heading over to JB's this weekend. Hopefully we'll get some modeling and some painting done.
Definitely.
I have been, like Grant, went to MMSI and came back just jazzed. I have pulled out a Tusken Raider bust that Aaron Cook gave me a couple years ago. So I'm going to get that out and see what I can do. Maybe, yeah, Doug's got a similar one there. See if I can ruin it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to do a zenithal spray on it from an angle and see what I can get and go from there. Just want to try it. Been working on my dust work 155 millimeter gun with Josh as well. Got some work done on that, and I've actually been kind of researching after going to MMSI. You see, and I'm sure it was the same for you guys over at SMC. The presentation of everything is just top notch. You know, it isn't just the modeling, but the basing and the figures and everything. And so I've really been kind of trying to dream up, like, you know, what's a project that I could really, really sink my teeth into that maybe combines all those elements. So I've been working on that and have some ideas. We'll see where they go. Anyway, sounds like we all, in spite of travel and lots of other commitments, it sounds like we've all been working again and we've all been inspired. So that's really, really great. Well, I'm going to kick this over to our good friend, Mr. Mayberry, to talk about an MMSI summary.
So, like I said, me and Scott went to MMSI in beautiful downtown Chicago. Well, not downtown Chicago, but outside Chicago last weekend. Fantastic time. And it's not going to just be me talking. Scott's going to jump in here too. I just want to say to Barry, Joan, and Jim, the rest of the MMSI group, that they put on a fantastic show, fantastic location, great people, super run smooth as you can imagine. Everything was very easy, very professional, very great vendors. Overall experience was, very high, very, very high for me. Really enjoyed it. First time I'd ever been. So I was lucky enough to shadow a judging team, which included John Rosengrant and a couple other people. So that was very, very fun. This morning, Scott asked me to think about 3 things that I really enjoyed about the show. And so I wrote those down. And the first one is the judging. The first thing I noticed about the judging that was really different than anything else is that when you first got to the tables, it wasn't negative. You went out and you found the best model of the person who placed their stuff there. So it was very positive from the start. So you went out and you found their best model and why it's their best model. And you talked about that. And that's the one you end up judging individually as you go along, which was, it's a little bit different than other judging systems where you look for, construction or whatever like this. This was very positive. It was to hear people talk about, this model is great because of this or this or this. So that was one of my points that I wanted to put out there. I also want to say that Jim from Small Subjects was able to get us a rubric that Shep Payne had, and he passed it out to us. And I'll put it in the show notes for this, or have Scott do that for us. But it's a very interesting breakdown of the percentages and it shows you how to break down each of individuals. Now, there's only like 8 or 9 categories, maybe 10 at the most. And they basically have figure painting, fantasy painting, ordnance and stuff like that. And then it's figure painting, for example, and figure open. And open is a category that's used for scratch building, usually about 70% more of the figure. That's what they're looking for when they judge that category. So, the breakdown is a little bit different in that category. They look at a few other things than they do for just the painting. So, but like I said, I'll post that rubric on there. The second thing I really liked was how open everybody was. Everybody was extremely friendly. Like I said, it was my first time there, and I'm sitting there on the first day, and Scott and we're all like picking our jaws off the ground the entire time, and talking to people, talking about models and looking at models, and I'm talking to Scott and a guy standing next to me, and I'm looking at this Mike Blank scratch built figure called the King No More. Where he scratch built basically 3 figures, and it's just amazingly built, amazingly painted, and just looks beautiful. And Mike was standing right there talking to us about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Mike Blank, and this is my project," and so stuff like that, And John Rosengrant was there, and Penny Meyer. Penny was showing off. Penny is a fantastic flats painter from Vegas. She used to be from the San Diego area, and then the LA area, this area up here. but then she moved to Vegas. And Penny's another one of those people that will tell you everything you want to know. Rick Taylor, another one, was there showing, walking us around. Gary Baker, who we had on the show a couple episodes ago or an episode ago, from San Diego. We basically had ambushed him and took him away as hostage for the entire weekend. And me, Scott, and Aaron, we just kind of sat around and talked and did everything together. So it was fantastic. The last thing is the sheer amount of impressive work. When you go to some shows, you see decent stuff. This was probably 99% of a show, 90% of a show. Scott could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear to God, every time you turned around, there was something else. It was one of those shows where, it just kind of, it either made you two different ways. It made you inspired to go paint, or it made you inspired to go learn how to knit, because that was it. I mean, that was the basic thing. And it was amazing. So, that was really interesting, really fun. I mean, there was, and I do want to add this before I let Scott talk, I'm sorry, but, there was almost as much fantasy painter medals handed out this year than there as historic painting figures, which is historic is their big category.
Yeah.
So this year fantasy was really close. So way to go, guys. There was some fantastic work on the tables.
Yeah. Listening to the SMC wrap up, John and Jensen, you guys were talking about demographics and how there's more female modelers. There's a bigger range of ages than you might see at, say, an AMP show or at IPMS Nationals. And that was certainly the case at MMSI. It's not as big as SMC. No. But definitely with the fantasy painters, there were a lot of younger people, and also the people that came to the show that were going through the show, there was a lot of younger people, which was really tremendous. MMSI is one of the oldest clubs in North America. They trace their roots back to toy soldier painting and collecting. Even they're kind of known as the Shep Payne chapter, but they really even predate Shep. So, they have a lot of history, a lot of tradition in that show. But yeah, it's really great to see that. Penny, as Grant mentioned, is just incredible. One of the flat that she brought several pieces, but one of the flats she brought, I mean, just it's one of those pieces that make you think this should not be at this model show. This should be at a museum somewhere. This belongs, somewhere different. But I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it, Grant, that I didn't oversell the show. As Grant mentioned, it's an open system. I think it's very, very similar to what you guys were describing the judging and the rules at SMC was. A smaller number of models, certainly, but open system. About 7 or 8 categories, as Grant mentioned. Most of the categories are split into open and painters. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. And again, the judging teams would look at a modeler's body of work there and then decide if they, which piece they were going to judge, or that was the best piece, or in some rare cases, they could do the whole collection. And it sounds like that's how they did things at SMC as well. It seems like SMC, from what I've seen, the presentation, I love the elevated presentation you guys had over there. The lighting was fantastic. So this was a little more your traditional North American show, but very well lit, very well done. I did historical painters was my category. Got to look at amazing pieces, flats, figures, vignettes, and dioramas. And my judging team was led by Scott Primo, who's an amazing artist in his own right. He taught me an amazing amount in just a couple of hours of kind of what to look for, in figures. And I've been judging for 25 years, but you always, I think, if you're judging with people that are really talented, you always end up learning and really value that experience. Last year, my team was led by Greg DeFranco. Again, I learned a ton from him. These guys are amazing. Barry and Jim, as Grant said, and the rest of the MMSI team put on a fantastic show. Vendors are a little bit skewed towards figure painting, as you might expect, and dioramas and things like that. But there were model kits there, and quite a few vendors, I would say, for the size of the show. I don't know the model count, but, judging took 2 or 3 hours. It didn't take overly long. after we decided which pieces we were going to judge, we all broke out and individually as judges judged those ourselves and then turned in the scores. And they were evaluated by the judging team. And if the team had a lot of variation, they would come out and they would grab the judging team and kind of evaluate it. But overall, it was pretty consistent. Anyway, John, I know you haven't been to an MMSI yet, I don't believe, but I think it was pretty similar to open shows that you've been to.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I attended World Expo, the Chicago show, back in 2017. So same team put that on. But yeah, I what you've described is very similar to what we experienced at SMC in terms of judging, in terms of piece versus collection, in terms of explicit scoring and whatnot like that. It was a little different, but still the principles of the open system, those established by Shep Payne, carry through those events. And I think what you'll agree with is, it's all around rewarding the modeler. You're not distracting from pieces when you evaluate them. You're looking at them and rewarding them at a level in which they've achieved. So I think that's a good differentiator for the open system. And it's just it rewards the modeler, whether it's a single piece or their collection. So it sounds like, as I mentioned, the principle is the same across both shows.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's also interesting, those that don't care for the open system use the participation trophy. But a couple things stood out very similar to IPMS judging. The golds as you were judging, the goals really jumped out at you. I mean, you knew immediately what was a gold. And I would say maybe similar on the certificates of merit, but yet when you got to the bronze and the silver, it was very difficult sometimes. And I was trained by Scott, who again, I was judging with, and there was a substantial step from a certificate of merit to a bronze, and then another significant step from a bronze to a silver, and then another significant step from a silver to a gold. And so while the judges were definitely wanting to reward the work and celebrate the work and the effort that was put into the piece, it wasn't easy to get a gold medal at all. Obviously, in an open system, there is no competition piece to piece, but I'm sure, it's probably the same at other shows. When the level of work is at the level that it was at MMSI, you've got to obviously bring your A game. If you don't bring your A game, you're not going to get that level of recognition, because even though there isn't a competition there's very much a community and a level of expectation, I guess, that comes from, most of these guys go every single year, and they know they've been to it before. They know what's expected to get recognition. And I think that really shows in the work and shows in the results. But I think I judged 32 pieces, and the pieces that I judged, I think there were 3 or 4 golds out of those 32. So there were a little bit, but it wasn't like, you get a gold, the Oprah Winfrey thing, you get a gold, and it wasn't like that at all. I mean, to get a gold, especially with a guy like Scott, who's such a talented painter and really sees, those aspects so well, you really had to earn it, bring your A game to get a gold medal. And those that got them were richly deserving of that recognition.
Yeah, I agree with this guy. Like you said before, you could tell the ones right off the bat that are the top level ones, the golds, in my opinion. I judged historical figures open. So there was, I think it was 48 that we did, 48 or 47, counting some shadow boxes. So, and I think a total of those, I think we had, 8 or 9 golds, but they were all gold worthy. The hard part was the bronze and silvers. That was extremely difficult. And it was extremely difficult because they weren't good. It was extremely difficult to keep to make sure you're doing the right thing, and everybody gets what they deserve. So it was the idea of a participation trophy to me is ridiculous because of some of the stuff that I saw. It was unbelievable, and it was a silver or a bronze, it's not a participation. I don't care what anybody says, but that the way it's set up is that, like Scott said, is these people know each other, and a lot of them know each other. So they're looking at their work over 4, 5, 6 years. And they're seeing where guys, I was judging, and there were people, the judge, we were doing the group picking the best one, and they're like, yeah, this guy 2 years ago wasn't doing this kind of work. His camouflage, his splinter camouflage on this uniform is 3 times as better as it was last year or whatever. And, and you hear those conversations and you start looking at these things, and, it was very impressive for me to see that. And, this was the first MMSI show and my first time I've ever been in an open show, and to watch how that whole system worked was great. I mean, for me at first it was hard because it is kind of crazy because I was falling into that old pattern, because I have judged IPMS nationals quite a few times. I've judged at AMPS once or twice a long time ago. So, and I know you fall into that. So I was basically continuously stepping back and saying, okay, don't do this, writing down stuff to myself and stepping back into that conversation. And, it was eye-opening to a point where it's like, I want to do that more, and I want to go do that style of judging a lot more. And I think it's a lot more productive for the modeler, that you're not judging him. You're not judging an individual against another individual and another individual and another individual and all this. You're judging the pattern of their work, or, where they're at their work. It's going to take, it might take a little while to see that pattern of work, but you'll know it when you see it. So it's, I was extremely excited to go. I was glad Scott talked me into it, which was not very hard. So it was just great. I had a great weekend with everybody, and I just really appreciated everything about the show.
Yeah, agreed. Before we wrap up, just a couple shout outs to Andy Golden and Greg Szilard. Thanks so much for spending the time. Gary Baker, obviously, learn more from you guys than you could ever know. I talked about Scott Primo. Thank you for working with me in the judging. Jim and Barry and the team, just unbelievable. We also, I don't want to miss this detail. We also got to see a dozen of Shep Payne's original shadow boxes, which was amazing. A lot of them I had forgotten that he had done. One of the boxes they brought was one as a young modeler that was just one I loved, was based on a Frank Frazetta painting. There's a warrior kind of shielding a young lady, and they're like knee deep in a swamp, and there's some kind of monster with glowing eyes. And man, seeing that in person, it was really terrific. We all had that Shep Payne book, or at least most of us did, growing up, and we've seen all those pieces, but to get to see him in real life was really, really terrific. And then last thing is, I was an assistant judge again. When you're first there, you're an assistant. This is my second year. They had enough judges that I was an assistant again. I'm just fine with that. That's great. So my scores didn't count, but I did collaborate, and, I was a part of that, but, no volunteer judges. The judges are known, and Jim, who is the one who runs the contest, does a really good job. Our judges meeting was over an hour long. It was very substantive. It was very instructive. It was very specific, really, really good. So first class show all the way. If you, are considering it in the future, I'd encourage you to go. So anyway, we'll quit gushing on it, but it was a great show, and hope to attend again in the future. It is really, really terrific.
Yeah, I want to throw one shout out to Steve Schaefer, who's a Posse member. He stopped by and said hi. We looked at his models, did great. He did fantastic there. Steve, really appreciate it. Glad to meet you in person. There's a couple other ones out there that we met, and I don't have their names written down. I'm sorry. It was a great show, and thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Plastic Posse podcast is sponsored by Tankcraft, makers of the highest quality cutting mats for your workbench. Tankcraft cutting mats are heavy-duty, self-healing, come in 2 awesome sizes, and have World War II tanks and aircraft blueprint-style drawings on them. Spread out your next build on an olive green M4 Sherman or a Dunkelgelb King Tiger. They've got aircraft too. Check out all the designs and range of unique modelling tools at tankcraft.com. That's TANKRAFT.com. And remember, Plastic Posse podcast listeners can use the code POSSE15 to get 15% off your first order.
All right, let's move over to Doug.
Hey, are you a member of the Plastic Posse group on Facebook yet? Because if you're not, you really should be. It's an awesome community of members who share their work and help each other out every day. There are literally dozens of posts a day, and it's awesome. And from there, I'm going to talk about some of the feedback we've gotten. We haven't done feedback I haven't been here for feedback for a couple episodes. So here we go. First, we got a letter from Luis Toledo, also known as LT Models on social media. He says, I've been modeling for about 10 years, and I wanted to thank you for what you're doing for the scale modeling community and wanted to congratulate you on your success. Keep up the good work. He's wondering if there is any kind of a scale model, IPMS, anything, Hall of Fame. A lot of clubs and other hobbies have them, so why not scale modelers? In his opinion, it's a form of art, and he would like our opinions. What do y'all think?
You know, that's I think I mentioned this a little bit to John, but that's something we should take to Rob and the e-board, because I really think one of the things that IPMS USA wants to get better at is sort of recognizing the contributions of past IPMS members, not just e-board members, but people that really contributed to the society. And honestly, I think it's a great idea. John, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, I echo you, Scott.
All right. So Marco Lips, friend of ours here, says, hi, guys. As the high of SMC 2023 slowly floats away, plans for visiting the next show are in the make. I had a great time at the show hanging with my buddies Martin Holst and Hans Spruitt. Also meeting my German friends, Benedict and Max again was a blast. I've met a lot of modelers that I know from Insta and Facebook, among them Martin Vluders, and we instantly bonded. He brought along his brother, not a modeler, but a 3D wizard. He showed me some of his work, and it was mind-blowing. A personal highlight for me was meeting you guys. I assume that means JB and TJ and Jensen, because it wasn't me. And taking the time to have a chat with me. Also got the coin, which is a nice souvenir to remember the weekend by. On top of it all, I won 2 silver medals in the standard aircraft category. I didn't expect anything, seeing as how high the level of entries were. Furthermore, because my 32-second scale Spitfire didn't get anything at the IPMS show last year, I was a little hesitant to put her in the SMC contest because I'd already done a contest with her. I confessed this fact to a buddy of mine at the show. He had some different thoughts, and I wonder how you would all think about that. He told me if I wanted to know where I stand as a modeler, I should put these exact models in multiple contests, see how they do, and take the average of those results. That should give me a better view as to where I stand. Wondering what your opinion is.
Yeah, I'll just start off. Marco, great to hear from you. Marco is a great friend now. I consider him a great friend, along with Martin and Martin. The Dutchies, as Martin told me, they're great people, and it was so nice to meet them. I sat with them for lunch one day. Overall, just fantastic folks. Spoiler alert, we're going to have Martin, and Marco on for a special Low Country episode, which should be a lot of fun in the future. But bottom line, going back to what Marco said around entering models in multiple shows, of course, you got to do it. You know, it's important to put your work on the table. It's important to share it. And I think it's also important to take it to different venues that have different approaches to judging. You know, as we talked about SMC and MMSI, those are the open systems. And that's not what IPMS is. You know, people have their preferences, and that's okay. We're not going to say which one's better, but I certainly prefer one over the other. But, you know, I think it's really great that you took your model to SMC. The judges at SMC, you know, it's an honor. I was asked to judge, and you should really take to heart that the people who evaluated your piece, they're pretty good modelers, to say the least. Their work was on display there, and I think the value that you've gotten from SMC, that is a great way to kind of know where you are, how you're evaluated from the perspective of your peers and people that can achieve a certain level of craftsmanship and work. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say here is, yes, take your models to as many shows as possible and display them. People want to see them. People want to appreciate them. And also, it's great to understand if you're interested in that aspect of the hobby of competing and showing your work and understanding just, again, where you stand, shows are the best way to do that.
Yeah, I agree with John, and be interested to get Jensen's perspective on this, because he's got access to, he's been to Nats, he's also been to Telford, and he's been to SMC. But unless you take your model and you win at Nats, you probably shouldn't be taking it to other IPMS shows there. But like John said, different formats, different shows, different judging styles. Absolutely. Because the goal is to get better. And and then the other part of it that I feel pretty strongly about, because I'm not as much into the competition, I think, as other people, is participate, put a model on the table. When you go, put your work out there and let people see it and share it with them, because undoubtedly you're going to end up inspiring somebody. Jensen, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's something I'm guilty of for not taking my stuff here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, get it out. Like, let everyone see it. And obviously, it doesn't really matter what the format is, if it's open system or 1, 2, 3, whatever show you attend, just take it out and see the results at different shows and just let a wide audience see it. Yeah, I mean, that can only be a good thing. Like I say, do as I say, not as I do, because I don't take my stuff like anywhere. If I could, I would. But yeah, just get it out, inspire people, talk to other modelers about the work you've done, especially for those who can't travel as easy. It's good. Like, they can meet you at a show and be like, hey, I've seen this all over Facebook. Like, tell me all about it, and stand there for 35 minutes like a lot of us do and just chat about modeling and the subject you've brought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would have to say the same thing. I say, we all talk about different shows, different judging formats are great. Like Jensen was saying, though, I think, if you don't have that availability, Instagram, Facebook, all these other things are out there that you can place it on there. We have a fantastic Facebook page. Please post it on that. We will talk to you. We will if you want some help, we have thousands of people on that page that will help you, and they will give you pointers of what you need. So yeah, get it out there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We're going to jump on to a couple of good-sized emails from our friends who talked about their style. We're going to start with Cody Kaczynski. He says, well, we all have it. I think we can admit to being able to readily identify the modeler behind the model. For me, I can always identify as a logo build based on the paintwork, weathering, and presentation. As for me personally, I consider style being both positive and negative. On the positive side, a style of mine is always having builds festooned with stowage. But on a more negative note, I've found that I've made a bad style of weathering and rushing projects to completion. Rushing has always been influenced by a deadline of some sort. I would also argue that style can shift as time and skill level go on. I've seen my style shift away from painting with rattle cans to going through the effort of airbrushing. I see it with my dad's build, with him using better quality paints, while my brother's style has rapidly shifted from stock building Gundams to full-on painting. We all have our own styles and we love seeing it. And at the end of it all, there is no wrong way to build a model. Very cool. I actually see some of what his points in my style. And he's right. There is no wrong way to build a model. Absolutely. Jeremy Elliott. Hey guys, great episode as always. I really enjoyed listening to the discussion around painting and whether we change our painting styles, techniques, depending on the subject. I know for me, this has been a thing I have been working on a lot. When I first started modeling, and up to very recently, I mainly built 1/48 scale aircraft with a few 72nd and 32nd scale thrown in. With my aircraft builds, I typically paint small areas and move on. I recently started building some armor and a couple of Gundam kits. I found when I first started, I tried to follow the same painting rules I would for aircraft. I quickly found that this was a waste of time for me personally. I don't need to see the detail or worry about painting until closer to the end of the build. I also found myself detail painting areas that will never be seen. I found I just need to dry fit stuff together, see what's going to be visible, and lay down a coat of primer and paint only the stuff that's visible. Now, to talk about personal style, I think that this is an area I am still trying to find myself. I've built aircraft for so long that I've tried some different techniques, and I just don't think I've truly found my style. We'll see where this next year takes me and my skills as they improve. I plan on finishing both an aircraft and armor piece for the Madison Nats as part of the Operation Overlord group build. There will also be some Gundam and some modern armor builds over the next year and a few miscellaneous subjects as well. Thanks for the topic and yeehaw! Really, thank you, Jeremy. And a really, just a few, a bunch, but real short. What would you all save in a fire? This was our discussion from last time. If you could take one, and in some cases, we have a couple of people throwing in two, kits that if their house was burning down, what would you save? A few examples here are Nuke Man Mike said he would save his LRDG as it's a subject of his only article to date. Christian Jacobs would save his Revell KLM Boeing 767, inspired by his late grandfather's build. Joshua Scott Wells, probably something Gundam. Oh, look at that. 1 to 100 scale FA78-1 and a 144 scale second V, whatever those are, Gundams. He would save Gundams. Cliff Herring would take his Ammonite and Martin Drayton's diorama that Martin gave to him. Speaking of Martin, he would save his Tamiya LRDG Chevy truck. Jesse Naughton would save his Academy M3 Grant, and Craig Flynn would save his Bandai Mandalorian. And Eric Brubaker would save a hard copy of the video of Jim and Josh dancing.
As he should.
Anyhow, that's what I'm gonna wrap up with today. Thanks for your feedback, and everybody feel free to send us your feedback either on our Facebook group or at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Before we move on, just a couple of quick announcements. For those of you that didn't hear it last time, we've extended the facade builds through the end of the Thanksgiving weekend, so you got a little bit extra time. So please post pictures when you're done with that. Also over Thanksgiving, I think Jim Bates and the Posse are going to be doing another 72-hour group build. So if you want to dodge some Christmas shopping and stay out of the traffic, hop online with us. More details will be following in later episodes. Also, we have a new prototype build, I guess, of the new Tamiya F-35B. Tamiya USA was nice enough to send us one of the white box kits, and we have forwarded that kit into Steve Baker's very capable hands, and he's going to be doing a boom modeling and plastic posse joint and posting pictures of that build. I can tell you his initial thoughts on that are extremely positive. And so look for that if you're interested in that aircraft. Let's move over now to John Benani.
Thanks, Scott. Time for a reminder that the Plastic Posse is just one of several great modeling podcasts. You can head over to modelpodcast.com and you will find links to all of them. I think it's important to note here that TJ and I were just on the Sprue Cutters Union to discuss SMC, so definitely check out their latest episode. Very grateful for our time there from Will, Chris, and Tracy. In addition to the modeling podcast, you can find several modeling-related blogs, vlogs, such as Chris Wallace's Model Airplane Maker, Scale Canadian TV with Mr. Jim Bates. I think we know that guy. And check out the new blog from David Bryan Bridges over at DB Scale Model Studio Blog. And I'm going to turn it over to Jensen to discuss our next topic.
Thank you, JB. So, something I wanted to discuss was, what is the model you have seen at a recent model show, MMSI, SMC, or any other show you've been to recently, that you saw that really inspired you, and how will you incorporate that inspiration into your builds moving forward? Now, I do have an answer. I'm not going to go first. I am actually going to throw that to Doug first.
Well, considering I haven't been to a show since August, I'm trying to think of something from Nats. And you know what? There were a lot of great things at Nats. Dang, it's going to have to be the build. It would actually be a collection of builds. It was honestly our group build. It was the Machine and Krieger group build. It was loaded with so many different things in so many different styles. And it's not that it made me say, man, I want to build Mach-E. It just made me just kind of expands your ideas for what you can do with something, especially something that's maybe sci-fi and there's not any real world base for what you're doing. I wouldn't even want to start naming everybody, but I mean, Cliff Herring, let's just say it. Cliff had that incredible Ammonite that he had so many Easter eggs on it. It was beautifully done, beautifully executed. And then he just threw so many cool things on it. I don't know. Those were all inspiring. Just can't say enough about what everybody did, and the fact that everybody was participating with us on that was unbelievably cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. I just like yourself. I just love the Easter eggs on that build, and it was great. It was just like the more you looked, the more you found. It was really inspiring, and I've got an MO now I need to do as well. Grant, what about your good self?
I think it has to go back to MMSI for me, Andy Golden's work. He does some fantastic figure camouflage uniforms, German, U.S. paratroopers, everything you can think of. They are very well done, extremely well done, extremely professional. So fine detail that it makes you want to just, you want to get to that level. So that for me was the biggest thing that I found that I wanted to, that I liked so much. And it was, can I do that with 135th scale? I don't know. I'd like to try and do that down to 128, or 130, 30 millimeter, 35 millimeter, something like that. But, Andy's work is phenomenal. It is. It really is. And, it was, that's the one that got me, is if you ever can, if you can ever see Andy's work up close and personal, it's just really good.
I agree. That's great. Scott, what about yourself?
I hope you guys are going to have as hard a time as I'm going to have answering this question. Just a quick qualifier. When you go to MMSI, they give you, if you enter a model, then you actually get a best of vote. You have to actually enter a model. And if you judge, they give you a vote that's worth 3 votes. And so I had 4 votes. And I got to tell you, Grant knows this. I kind of agonized for 2 or 3 hours walking around trying to figure out, which piece I was going to, give my votes to, because it was just that good.
I know. I think that was like 3.5 hours of pain.
Well, it was, it was a tough decision. I think I want to talk about Shadowbox that Jim DeRogatis brought. And I think you guys are probably sick of me talking about, my eyes have kind of been open to this element of presentation and storytelling. And Jim brought a box, and it was a young man on a couch in his house, and he has a toy garbage truck, and he's looking through the window. His mom's watching all this happen, and he's looking through the window, and the garbage man is out front getting their garbage cans, and the little boy's obviously excited, and it's a beautiful little story. I mean, none of that is conveyed with words. It's all just a single moment frozen in time. But it was really inspiring. It's just like, as even work that I put a lot of time and effort into, dozens or hundreds of hours, I've never had a piece that could convey something that is so beautifully simple, but really kind of elegant in its own way, if that makes any sense. So that really inspired me. And it really, I mean, I may not ever tell a story as eloquently as Jim has in that piece, but I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a shot and hope that someday I can put something on the table that does that good of a job telling a story. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Oh, great. No, that's a great response. And that's kind of similar to what I'm going to say. But before I go off on one, JB, how about yourself?
Oh, man, I might steal yours, I think. For me, I got to go with Zaba art.
Luckily, you've not stole it, but I'm glad you've mentioned it.
Oh, for SMC, I shameless plug for our album from SMC. I tried to take a picture of everything that I found inspirational, and I think I got over 900, and I probably could have taken 900 more. A few stick out, one of which that I'm, and certainly there's the armor from Spud, Darren, Dan, Pete, the list goes on. Sam Dwyer, Roger Herkman's, all those names, all those Alex Clark, all those pieces of art, of their armor work is in the album. But I think what I really want to hit on, it's something that for me as a traditional armor modeler, seeing the work of the fantasy figure painters really, dare I say, opened my eyes. And I'm like, man, I've been painting in drab and dunkelgelb, where there is some colors that they're using that is just truly mind-blowing. One of which, absolute pro, is Zaba Art. And it's somebody that when I saw his name as a vendor, I was like, oh, snap. And I think Jensen had the same type of just reaction where it's like, this guy's stuff, if you've never seen it, he goes by Zaba Art on Instagram. Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic work. And at the show, he had every piece that I believe he sculpts them. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jensen.
Yep, sculpts them all by himself.
all by himself, sculpts them, beautiful castings, and he paints them as well. And some of the pieces that you have known are the little mushroom dude that looks like he's wearing a beret. There's the turtle. There's a hammerhead shark. And his latest Kickstarter is an octopus coming out of a barrel. And he did that. And that one probably sticks out the most to me. I certainly love the turtle. I love the mushroom man, the snail. But the octopus with the cleaver and the hook, it was a piece that I admire a lot because of just the color variation. It's got, the traditional wood tones, I guess you could say, of the tans. It's got non-metallic metal on the banding on the bucket, or, the barrel, that is, and on the hook. But the way he does the gray tones on the octopus itself and the purple spots, and then he's holding this like little, I don't know, vial or bottle of something that he's painted the liquid inside to be, in an orientation in which the bottle's rotated. Again, it's just nuts. And I found myself spending just time there looking at his work, admiring it and studying it. And I'm just speechless in terms of what that looks like. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I can sure as hell try. And for me, the inspiration comes from just the colors, the posture, the tones, the attitude of these pieces, because you could get the attitude from them. I'm just speechless. And I found myself going back to that stand. Honestly, the biggest regret, I don't know why I didn't buy a piece from him, but I'm going to go fund the Kickstarter for the octopus. Yeah, I'll just stop going on because I'm speechless because of it.
Yeah. It's hard to not go on. How many times did I keep going back to that stand? Like that's where you could find me. Because we were all stood there. Well, I say we were all stood. I was stood there. I just kept looking I was just literally stood there, arms folded, just staring at each one. And Lucas was just like, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" But he was like, "Yeah, you can pick them up if you want." I was like, I wouldn't even dare pick them up. And he was like, "Which one interests you the most?" I said, "Funnily enough, it's the octopus." He was like, "That one's not out yet." I said, "Of course it's not." But yeah, like JP said, that's a Kickstarter I'll be supporting. And I know on that Kickstarter as well, those who do support get a little freebie of like a little gold coin money sack. Again, sculpted by Lucas Rusical. But yeah, completely understand and learned an awful lot from talking to Lucas. But yeah,
he's a great guy. I talked to him once, and he's super nice. I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but he does a shark. I don't know if they had the shark there where he's holding the shark is holding so much attitude and such a cool little sculpt. I mean, just the guy's amazing. So
for me, it's not really it's not the model specifically, although the model was absolutely outstanding. This is Peter Rusher with the SPG, and the thing that I wanted to there was a scale model challenge. That is why that one was important to me. Was the model was just breathtaking. It was gorgeous. It was just in every way incredible. But it's as I believe it was. I think all of us were stood with Peter, me, TJ, JB, and Jackson, and Peter was saying, "See that little blue tie down that's hanging out of the door on the side? That's there deliberately to draw you in to look inside the vehicle." And it just instantly clicked in my head. So it's like it's not the detail itself. It's like directing the viewer. And it was so specific. I was like, wow, all it took was one little blue tie down, and it sucks you in further to investigate every other aspect of that model. So yeah, it got me thinking about those little things where you can kind of manipulate and dictate where you want the viewer's eyes to go. I was like, that's just genius. Something so simple. And it's like all of a sudden you're possessed and under control. Like you're looking where they want you to look. Another point I want to say again, this wasn't a model. This was actually during the Sprue Cutters Union judges panel we all attended and listened to on the first day. And it was Lester Plaskett. And someone asked a question in the audience, and he was like, with my dioramas, there's a lot of empty space. How do I fill it with stuff? And it was really simple. Lester said, if there's no need for it to be there, it shouldn't be there. Don't put things for the sake of filling space. Everything should have a purpose. And again, just hearing it out loud, I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, make the diorama fit for the size it needs to be. Don't just try and fill a base or a diorama or anything with stuff for the sake of filling it. Everything should have a reason and a purpose for being where it is. I was just like, again, kind of sounds obvious, but hearing it out loud, it was like, yeah, that's another thing I'm going to do. Like, make the base and the scene conform to the purpose of the model that's on it and the figures that are on it or whatever. make everything deliberate.
Yeah, and I believe Pete Usher answered that question as well,
Mm-hmm.
leveraging the empty space too. And I if I remember correctly, he cited Mind the Gap as that one piece that really accentuates the emptiness of areas where you have that lone soldier out there in the middle and he's not surrounded by anything. And there's two train cars on either side, or the engine and the train car, and his folks are reaching out trying to save him. People are getting pulled back, but it's leveraging that open space to tell that story. I did think that question was really really important, and hearing their responses was really, really good. And while we're talking about Pete Usher, my second choice was going to be his SDKSN 250. It was recently published on Weathered Models. It's a smaller piece of his. It's got two figures and a single vehicle with a tree and snow. But for some reason, I found myself, Jensen mentioned, sitting next to pieces at the show and just staring at them. I remember just getting down on, squatting down, looking at it at eye level, and just feeling the mood of the piece, the tones, the coolness, the posture of the figures. And it's just a really, it's my favorite from his. I should say one of my favorite, because all of his are my favorites. But I'll say it's my favorite today.
John, that's such a great. John Rosengrant brought a piece that Grant mentioned briefly, just as just a hand sculpted 1/16 scale American GI on a horse, and the posture of the horse and the posture of the GI are just so important to the mood. It's just a figure on a horse, but I mean, it's so important to presenting what the feeling or the mood that as an artist he was trying to portray, and just really stunning. Another Gary Baker, his assassin piece is he took an elf figure, a female elf figure, and modified it into like an anime sci-fi fantasy kind of a figure, and just sets a mood with posture and what she's wearing, and just all these little tiny elements that Jensen mentioned, the blue tie strap. It's little tiny elements that you probably don't even think about at first, but they're really, really important to what's being portrayed by the artist.
I think Doug Cohen had one that was called, I can't remember, something to Liberty, but it was a Revolutionary War where the soldiers were it was basically taken from a painting, and it was just the power in that little 3-figure diorama was just, vignette it was unbelievable. You see stuff like that, and you see what, like Jensen said, there's that little blue color, or that little thing there that it just draws you in and you can't stop looking at it. And that's where the art comes from.
Well, thanks, guys. I thought that was a really good discussion. I think it was good just because most of us been like really busy with shows and seeing all sorts at the minute. And while stuff's fresh in the mind, it's good to see what inspiration and motivation we took from these exhibitions.
Yeah. And, for those people at home that went to MMSI or SMC or other model shows, if there's something that's inspired you, share that with us at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, Jensen, for that great topic. I think it really ties in well with our next segment. As you know, myself, Jensen, and TJ and Jackson attended SMC in Eindhoven, Netherlands in the middle of October. Fantastic event. This little segment is going to give you a taste of what we saw, what we heard, and what we came back with. And I'm certainly grateful to be able to go to the show and participate in it and meet the wonderful folks, not only at the show that I've never met before, but, those listeners that reached out, and we were lucky enough to bump into you at the show. And a lot of them we named during this segment, and I'm sure there's more that we missed. And it's unfortunate that there's only so much time in 2 days to get to see everyone. And next time we'll definitely coordinate a Posse meet and hopefully get to see more of you. So sit back, enjoy the show, and learn more about one of the best times we've had all year at a scale modeling show. Well, hello, listeners. Welcome to a special episode of the Plastic Posse podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Scale Model Challenge, an amazing show that myself and co-hosts here attended last week in Eindhoven, Netherlands. It was an amazing time, and we can't wait to talk about everything about the show. Vendors, venue, contest, and most importantly, people and those that we met from the posse at the show. It was an incredible 2 days that extended a little bit on each side. And we're going to get into it to talk about how do you get there? What do you want to do there? Just because this is an event that needs to be shared with everyone, you should feel like you can come, attend, have fun, get to know people, get to see amazing work, and leave with something very special. And I think that's what we all had happen to us this past weekend. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-host, and then we're going to get right into it. So joining me today, I have TJ from the East Coast. TJ, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Excited to talk about SMC.
Same. And then also we have the Sir Jensen Taylor from the land over the pond. It's all you, buddy. How you doing?
I'm
Oh!
good. That pretty much sums up the week, really. No, I'm good. I'm excited to relive SMC again, riding a wave of motivation. It's going to be really good.
Outstanding. So we'll just get right into it with the basics around the show. So it was held October 14th and 15th outside Eindhoven in the NH Koningshof Conference Center. Actually, the best location for a show. Everything's included essentially there. Great restaurant, great bar, plenty of rooms, and a fantastic venue for hosting a scale model show. It was really weird. The inside was black and it looked like almost like a production studio for movie sets. But overall, it was an amazing experience. And I think what we might do is just start off with what did each of us, I'm sorry, Jensen, but we'll talk about what each of us brought, and then more or less like preparing for the show. What were you looking forward to? What sparked your interest? Because for all of us, this was our first time to SMC. We had never, we'd never been there before. We'd saw postings online. But what was the trigger to go to this show? And maybe I'll start with you, Jensen. What was that trigger?
Yeah, because SMC's obviously been taking part there for quite a long time. And it's only a very, very small hop over the channel for me. So getting there was never really an issue. It was, for some reason, leading up to this show, it was the most I'd ever heard about it. It seemed, I don't know if it was just because, I think it was before we were going. It's like we were kind of told, like, you really must go. I'd heard about the show a lot more. It was hyped up a lot more. And I think maybe that's because it's first time coming back for a few years after COVID. Like, this is the big SMC return. So I think maybe that is what drove me to think about it a lot more. And then you guys saying, yeah, I'm going to make the trip over from the US to attend. It's like, well, I have no excuse now. If you're going to get on an 8-hour flight, I have no excuse to not be on a 55-minute flight, so I'll join you there. And yeah, it's one of those that I'd like to think that I was talking to Graham about this a little bit earlier today, and he was saying it's been long noted that the pinnacle of modeling, along with Mosen, is SMC, and this is where the best come to show their work. So why wouldn't I go, really? This is kind of what led me to go. You guys go in, nearly everyone I know on my Facebook friends list, anyone in modeling kind of went to this show. So it's like, I can't not attend, really. I have to see what it's all about.
100%. TJ, what are your thoughts there?
A lot of the same that Jensen said. I've known about SMC for a while. It's next year, I think, is the 15th show. They would have had more, obviously, if COVID hadn't happened. But yeah, wanting to go, I wanted to be around the best modelers in the world, like the legit best modelers in the world. Because I hope you can learn through osmosis, just being around them and just being immersed in the top of modeling, right? I don't mean it to sound shitty or whatever, but like that is where the best of the best go. And I wanted to be a part of that, not because I count myself among those people, but I want to see that in person. And I want to meet the guys that I look up to and, spent years like drooling over their work on the internet, like, saving their photos in a folder so I can reference it later and interacting with them in groups and stuff like that. Like I wanted to see all of that in person. And I've never been to the Netherlands. So I'm like, I really want to go to the Netherlands. And all my friends are going. I would like to go to the Netherlands with my friends. So that was the big push. But I agree with what Jensen said. Like, yeah, it was talked about, it seemed like, more and more this year. And, we might have had something to do with that. I know SCU, the Sprue Cutters Union, had something to do with it because Tracy has gone a bunch. Chris has gone a bunch. So like them talking about it, then us talking about it. And, the podcasts have a role to play in making this stuff popular. Really, I mean, we're not kingmakers or anything, but we definitely get the word out about stuff to to pique interest. And I think between us and the SCU, we were able to do that. And I think that's why you heard about it more this year. And hats off to Robert and the crew, because they actively pushed to get the word out too. So Robert went on SCU multiple times, and they were all great interviews. Robert Krombecki's an awesome guy. I think Margot, his wife, was even on an episode or two. So they really worked hard to get the word out. So it's hard not to want to be a part of it when you see so many people talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think I wasn't going to be in the midst of FOMO when this event happens and you see the amazing work on the table. And I think I want to really hit on something, as Jensen and TJ mentioned, the best in the world go there. As you talked about, these names, some of them I've known for over 20 years on Missing Links, in a Network 54 chat group, and being able to see their work in person is truly incredible. And I think what's even more is the humans behind the work and the ability to just walk up to Marcus Erickson. There's freaking Ivan Crocker. There's Pierre Lovlon. I mean, these gentlemen are true gentlemen, and they'll talk to you. And ladies too. I shouldn't negate that fact either, is where there was a large showing of female modelers as well, which was absolutely fantastic. You saw it during the award ceremony. I mean, some of them were cleaning up, and it's a beautiful thing to see that there's definitely diversity in the crowd. I think what's also important to talk about is the ability to come in as essentially a new name, a new face, and be accepted by the group there. Talk about the titans of modeling at that show, but I think it's also important to talk about there's some new timers to that show too. We had the opportunity to hang out with some Dutch, Martin, Marco, and Martin. They are listeners of the podcast. We connected, through the, Martin Hurst. I'm saying Marco Lips, and then Martin Vladders as well, or Flutters. These folks are, salt of the earth human beings coming to the show. I believe a lot of them were the first time, or they were, they had just started coming to the show, but the social atmosphere there is very accepting. So if you are at home, you've never gone to a major show, you don't go to shows very often, I would encourage you to put this show on your list for that matter. I found that this show is a true celebration of the hobby, and that everyone there was very accepting of everyone and their work for that matter. And I think no matter what level you are of a modeler, whether you're just starting or if you've been doing it forever and you've achieved, a lot of recognition, there is a spot for you on the table somewhere in the contest hall. And I don't want to even call it a contest hall. I really want to call it an exhibition hall, because that's what I found it to be. When you walk in there, and I'd love to have your both takes on it, it did not feel like a contest whatsoever. I don't know if it was how the models were displayed or the type of, it's weird to say, like aura in the room almost. It was different, and it was pro. I think that's maybe the word I want to use, is the way it was displayed, especially with the backdrops and the lights on everything. It was pro. So I'll stop there. TJ, I'll start with you. What was your thought walking into the exhibition hall?
Like you, I hesitate to call it a contest. I know they nominally call it a contest. It's not a contest. It's what did Chet Payne call it? A juried exhibition. That's what it is. And yeah, you walk in there and having the tables, like everything's black, that the whole room is black, so it looks like, as I think you mentioned, like a production studio. The lighting is great. You would think that a room that's solid black would have terrible lighting, but that the tables they have built have electrical built into them with lighting, so there's everything is under light, and it's very similar to the lighting that most of us use at our desk, which everyone can tell you your model always looks best under the lighting that you built it under, because that's, what I mean? Like, and that's kind of how they do it there. And yeah, you walk in, and first of all, it's overwhelming, right? Because you walk in and you immediately see a masterpiece, just like right in front of your face. It's like you walk in, it's a it's a whole gallery full of like Mona Lisas or whatever. And yeah, it was the tiered. I do agree that it was probably one tier too high. Because I know one of yours, your stuff got moved up to one of the upper tiers, which where it belongs. It's really good. It's top tier work, but maybe don't display it on the top tier so we can see it a little bit better. Yeah, it's in the figures too. Like, oh man, yeah. So like the dioramas and airplanes did not have that tiered display. It was only the armor, like most of the armor and the figures, especially. So yeah, just man, it was like sensory overload, right? Yeah, I kind of want to go back to, and reinforce what you said previously, JB. Like, yeah, the best and the best go to this show, but it's not just for them. I really want everyone to understand that, and that needs to be perfectly clear that it's not for just the best modelers in the world. It is literally for everybody. There's multiple levels to place your work in, depending on, and it's all self-judged. So if you feel you're a master modeler, yeah, put yourself in master. You may medal, you may not. If you feel you're a beginner, they have a beginner's class for everything, and they encourage people that's why they're there, to get beginners in there so you can see where you are, and they work kind of like AMPS does the same thing, where if you gold medal in a lower, quote unquote, lower class, you have to move up the next year. So if you enter it in beginners and you win a gold, like Chris did, Meddings entered a figure because he's not really a figure guy, so he entered his figures in beginners. Well, he earned a gold, so next year he's got to go in standard, or he can move up to master, but typically you would move up to standard. Yeah, then that's the way. Same thing with your models. If you are a beginner modeler, you put your stuff in beginner. If you're intermediate, you put it in standard. And standard modelers, it's the whole gamut. And if you earn a gold in standard, you move up to master, and it really is for everybody. And I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I'll jump into, maybe it's worth talking about, I've never been to the show. Where does my work go? I mean, it's an obvious question. You want to understand, am I a beginner? Am I standard? Am I master? From my perspective, and this is just, John's opinion, if, just as a baseline, if you routinely place at a local IPMS show or a local show in general, I think you can easily enter in the standard category. If you routinely take firsts at shows, best armor, or if you routinely place at more regional and national level competitions, I think that is a good indicator for you going into master. If you are just getting into the hobby, you've never been to a show before, you're curious, how am I going to do? Beginner is fine. Or it's okay to walk in the room and look at what's on the table and then go, maybe I am a standard modeler. I do want to emphasize what TJ said, is there is a place on the table for everyone. There's no expectation for a modeler when they walk into SMC. It's truly accepting. It's truly a celebration of the hobby. And you should feel confident that you can put it anywhere. A good example is Martin. He's never been to a show before. He entered his King Tiger in standard. He didn't walk away with anything, but what he walked away with was the knowledge of where to go next. How do I get to where I am medaling? And some people, again, it's a unique topic because winning isn't everything, but pushing yourself to be a better modeler is something. And a lot of people want to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. With that comes recognition. But Martin was very, we sat, it was great. After the show, a group of us gathered around. TJ, you even gave feedback too. And that was the best part, where we stood around. He, younger gentleman, first time meeting him. I think he was on sensory overload, because when we walked around, he got a signature from Mike Rinaldi, picture with Mig. So he was on cloud 9. And then we looked at his work afterwards, gave him some great feedback. And he was like, oh, right, I know what to do now. Next year, I'll come back bigger and better. And that kind of attitude, that kind of drive was infectious in the room. And you saw it at every level, whether it's beginner, standard, or master. There's always learning. There's always, pushing it. That's what it's all about in terms of just learning and becoming a better modeler. I mean, that's why people go and to see their friends and have fun. So
I'm gonna jump in, and then I'll send it over to you, Jensen. Sorry, buddy. So with what you're talking about, to me, if you feel like you're on the cusp, maybe between master and entering masters or entering standard, me personally, I would say go the next level up, because I think you'll learn more by not placing or getting a highly commended in the higher class than you will getting a gold in the lower class. There's nothing wrong with getting a gold. Golds are sweet. I would have loved to gotten a gold on anything, but yeah, to me, if you're really if you're at the cusp and you don't know where to go, my opinion, and this is just TJ talking, go the next class up. I mean, if you think you 100% belong in standard, do that. Absolutely do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but if you're you look at everything, you're I might have a chance in masters. I'll try masters. Go ahead and try it. And also the other thing is, you don't have to put all of your if you bring multiple entries, they all don't have to go in masters, right? If you're
That's what I love.
Yeah, if you're a beginner figure modeler, then you put your stuff in beginners. And that's great because it's all modeling, but we all typically specialize in one thing or the other, right? Like, so if you're like, I'm primarily an armor modeler, but I do figures, but my armor is my target, right? So I did not enter my figures in masters because I am not a master figure modeler. And same thing with figure guys that try armor or aircraft guys, because they do have aircraft there. And maybe you build a tank here and there. Go ahead. There's nothing wrong with putting it in the quote unquote lower class if that's not what you do, but that's a good way to judge where you're going and where to go next. So yeah, I just want to throw it out there. Go ahead, Jensen. The floor is yours. I yield.
Fair, right. So because I'd heard so much about SMC and the standard that's on show there, I decided this year I'm not bringing anything. Because before attending the show, I generally thought anything I built not worthy of even being on show in public. Walked into the exhibition hall, and that's what I'm going to call it, rather than the contest room, and it felt like serious business. And I don't mean that in a stuffy, I'm here to win sort of way. I meant like the feel of the room felt like, whoa.
There's an amount of pride, right? It's about pride
like,
of work. It's not, it's not stuffy in a bad way. It's like people are proud of their work.
Yeah, it's and just walking down the rows of models, and it's just like, okay, one, I'm glad I didn't bring my work because
shut up.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm disagreeing. There
is a but coming a little bit later on, but it's one of those. I'm glad I didn't bring my work because even though it's obvious, it's not like my work would have gone up against anyone else's. That's not how the system is. I'm glad I didn't bring it, one, because it just didn't belong. Personally, that's just how I felt. It wouldn't have been in good company.
Personally, you're wrong, but
but I walking around, and I know we looked at each other a lot like, wow, like, because we kept saying to each other, I need to go home and up my game. And we say that jokingly. We don't have to do anything. It's just, if this is the level we want to kind of get to, like, we know what we need to do. Because it was learning. Looking at all that work, you can't help but learn. There's so much like knowledge in the room and on show. But then, obviously, there were times we were sat with the Four Corners guys, and then Abilio from AK. Everyone said the same. You should have brought the ambulance, and I'm like, probably should have brought the ambulance. And thinking about it, yeah, I probably should have. I think it might have actually maybe done okay. But yeah, it's just you can't help but go round that room and just take it all in.
Inspiring.
The work is, and it's one of those. You can look at it two ways. A lot of people can go around and think, oh, my modeling's not as good as this. Why bother? You don't feel that. You can't help but go away and think, I want to get back to the bench now. Like, I just want to model like 24/7. Like, it's only a good thing to see work that inspires you. And I don't want to see work that's better than yours. That's a weird way of putting it. But to see work that you look up to, it can't help but do good things for you. It was just totally inspirational.
Yeah, and then I think to add on to that, not only seeing the work, but meeting the modeler. Great example, Four Corners. Not only was their work on the table in the exhibition hall, but they had a club stand in the vendor hall as well. And I think that's a unique aspect of SMC as well, where you have unbelievable vendors, and then in pockets of the vendor hall, there are the clubs, and it's clubs throughout Europe, from England. Four Corners is a perfect example. You walk in, and a great example is Mind the Gap by Peter Usher. I mean, this diorama has honestly world renown written all over it. It's been published. It's been shown everywhere. Weathered Models. If you are on Weathered Models on Facebook, you know the name Peter Usher. His team, I shouldn't say his team. It's all of the Four Corners. They're all an equal part. Having the ability to talk with them, hang out with them. I'll list them all. We got Pete Usher, Darren Thompson, Dan Sankey, Ian McGonigal, John Spud Murphy, Adrian Davies, Andy Taylor, and then lastly, and certainly not least, Lester Plaskett. These modelers are unbelievable modelers, but even better people. For a group of guys that have never been to this show before, TJ's never met these guys face to face. The ability to socialize, become a part of the family, dare I say, almost the adopted Americans, and we consider Jensen an American, to be able to hang out with them, see their work in person on the table. And then literally I ask like the basic questions. Like I feel like a total noob when I walk up there and I'm looking at Peter Usher's SDKF said 250 diorama with his two guys on it. And I'm just like blown away. And I'm asking literally the basic stuff. I'm like, how did you do the snow? And that seems like the most benign question in the world, but I felt comfortable asking it. And we spent, 20, 30 minutes walking through it. And he's pointing out, oh, this is what I did on Mind the Gap. This is how I do it. This is how I fix it. This is what I'm using. Complete openness, transparency, as I should say, on how they're accomplishing certain things in their work. Another great example, Lester, freaking amazing guy. Last night, we're in the Abbey Bar. We're all sitting down at the table. And I just asked him a simple question like, Lester, I love your style of worn dust and like mud and just that earthy kind of tone you get in your models. Well, a beer later in 30 minutes, he's walked me through the entire process in how to achieve that type of finish. And again, this is someone that I've never met before in person, talked a little bit online, but that's how accepting a lot. And you'll see that translated throughout the venue in terms of different categories, different people, and just that encouragement and openness. There's no secrets, and they're just trying to make you a better modeler. Another great example is Dan Sankey. I mean, I love that guy and Ian too. I mean, they're just great. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going other than if you go to this show, I think putting yourself out there, you will find that people will grab you by the hand and drag you around and give you the best time of your life. I think it's all about that, taking that risk from a social perspective.
Since we've already mentioned Four Corners multiple times, I just have to say, this is just personally speaking, those guys treated me the way they did was, it was great. Like, it's hard not to almost kind of be emotional about it, but like, I'm just a random American dipshit, right? Like, they don't know me from Adam. Sure, they heard me on a podcast. Who cares? And just the openness that they had towards me, like it meant so much to me, especially as someone that, I've mentioned this before, like I suffer from imposter syndrome, like really bad, and I'm hard on myself, and just those guys treating me like an equal, even though I don't feel like I am, was it's just, I can't, like it like legitimately, like it humbles me and like practically brings me to tears, right? Like these guys are like a class above, both on the field and off the field, right? Like in modeling and in life. And they just welcomed me with these big open arms, like, oh, you can come to dinner with us. I'm like, you don't even know me. Like, why am I here? I don't belong here. And, putting my models next to Spuds and like looking at it, I'm like, this should not be here. And Spud like, oh, no, mate, like it belongs here. I'm like, I know you're just being nice to me. You don't have to do that. And he's like, no. And like gives me live critique on my build and says almost nothing but good things. Right. And actually all he said was good things. And I'm like, holy cow, like you're John Murphy. Like my model's next to yours. And just, yeah, I don't know. I can't. Yeah. It meant a lot to me as a person and as a modeler to be with those guys and kind of like part of their crew, I guess. Yeah, it was just cool. Yeah.
Another thing I want to say is, you kind of just said it, but there's these names you see on the internet who produce this outstanding work, and you'll see them like for years. You'll know of them, and then you meet them at this show, and it's just how normal everyone is. It's like these are just normal people who are lovely and want to share their knowledge and will give you all the time in the world. And I know I'm really guilty of putting people on a pedestal online. It's like, oh, they do amazing work. They must be kind of secretive and like, oh, I'm really good. But it's like, no, everyone's super humble, super willing to exchange that knowledge, give you all the time to talk to you and teach you everything. And it's just, yeah, it's nice. And it was great to experience that at this show. The amount of people I spoke to for such a long time, and I was like, I'm going to start annoying you, but I'm going to keep asking you questions until you make me go away. It was great.
Another good example of a good human. I've never met Abilio from AK in person. Jensen, you thought we were best, all three of us hugging and like everything. As soon as we get there, I'm like, I've never met you in person. I've chatted a little bit online and commented on your work, but it just really shows the infectious passion for the hobby. And that was constant throughout the hall. One person I really have to call out who was kind of a shepherd for us was Marcus Eriksson, one of the nicest Scandinavian modelers He's from, well, I should say one of the nicest modelers from Scandinavia. Unbelievable human, just really super great, extremely gregarious and open to he pulled. I'm like, we started talking and he was giving me crap about not accepting a friend request. I'm like, I don't see one, man. So, I told him, I said, hey, you're good friends with Pierre LeBlanc. Do you mind introducing me to him? I'd love to meet him. I've admired his work forever. It'd be a real honor. And, the last night we're at the venue, he pulls him over and introduces me to him. And, it's meeting someone that I've admired, and we talk about his work, and he wins best ordnance there with his whale diorama. I mean, but again, the barrier to entry, there is no barrier to entry. I think we need to really emphasize that too, is there's no barrier to walk in the door, put your stuff on the table, meet some of the people that you've admired forever. You can come off the street and do it. This is a show that truly encourages it. And then that said, a lot of shows encourage it. But I just felt SMC was a special one. And I think it always, you can trace that type of approach, that type of attitude, that type of feeling all the way to the top. And I say to the top in terms of Robert and Margot. I mean, two salt of the earth individuals that are incredibly kind, incredibly open, and really set the tone for the show, I think. And when you meet them during the show, I think they're always calm, cool, and collected. I would be stressed to the max having 2,300 models on the table, thousands of people come through the door, hundreds of vendors, but they were always calm, cool, and collected. And then at the, in the evenings, whether it's out at dinner or walking around the bar, their attitude, their approach is incredibly infectious and they want people to come back. And I sure as hell want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's important to remember the motto of SMC is making the difference, right? Like it's literally on everything they have. It's on the awards. It's on posters. Like, that's the motto, making the difference. And they make the difference there, right? They truly do. I said when I was there, this is the best model show I've ever been to. And I'm not trying to necessarily discount any other good modeling shows that I've been to. I love going to IPMS Nats. I have a good time every time I go. I've been 3 times and enjoyed it so much. This one hit different, right? And 2 things can be good at the same time. Just, I think that's important to remember. Shows we go to can be good. This one can be good too. Yeah, it was, making the difference. That's what they do there on every level.
Someone else I want to give a quick shout out to as well, and I know Jackson would as well if he was here and awake, Andrei Grechkin. As soon as everyone went to bed at like 2 a.m., it was me, Jackson, and Andrei. Just like, we got ourselves locked out in the courtyard at like 2 a.m. because Jackson decided to slam the door behind us, which was a one-way opening door. So we were out there till, I think, like 3 a.m. just drinking, chatting about models and life. And it was great company all weekend. Yeah. And again, models are absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. Special shout out to Andrew. Actually, he gave me his little 1/144th. I think it's a BA6 armored car to take home. Just again, like you said, awesome human. And super nice, again, someone that I've admired his work for a long time. And we're sitting around, I think, Friday night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Andrew Gretchen. Holy crap, man. It's you. And that's the crazy thing is and I'm sure a lot of people, listening, you follow Instagram accounts, you follow Facebook pages. And it's like weird seeing people in person almost. It's like, whoa, okay, cool. I think it's you. You work up the courage to shake a hand, and by the end of the night, you're best friends. And I think that was a clear case with him, Robert Blocker. Another individual I really want to highlight, and he was amazing, was Johan Brander. Johan was fantastic. I met him Friday night, like super nice, and just a constant fixture throughout the weekend for positivity. And another great one was Robert Blocker, his selfies. The guy's a stud on and off the field, but the names go on and on. Truly a great event. And outside of the people, maybe let's talk about the vendors. Holy moly. It's something that TJ goes back and says, when he said the IPMS Nationals are fantastic, they are apples to oranges. And I'll even throw Telford in there as a pair. They are all different shows. They have different personalities. It's just like people. Everyone has a different personality, a different approach. Not saying that anyone's wrong. They're just different. And I think that's the key word is they are different. And people love each of them for their own reasons. I'll be honest, if I could go to all 3 every year, I would. Unfortunately, I think I have to make a choice between Telford and Eindhoven just because of international travel. But that said, really want to hit on that they're different. They can be appreciated in their own right. And SMC's vendors, you can definitely appreciate them in their own right. I know Jensen probably spent an hour or more at Saba Art.
Yes, I couldn't not. Like I've been fangirling over Lucas Saba's work for well, as long as I can remember. And the fact that every single piece that he sculpted and painted was on display for you to see. And this is something Mini Art did as well. When selling a product, it's best to have the product there, built and painted the best way you can be. Because he sculpts and paints them all by himself, then sells them. Yeah, I was just like, oh, it's you. I like your work. Let me ask you a million questions. And his wife made a big tin of cookies for everyone who stopped by. They were really nice as well. Oh, I nerded out. I just couldn't stop staring. He was like, you can pick them up. I was like, I wouldn't even dare get my greasy mitts on those works of art. I just couldn't. But yeah, they look good in pictures, but in person, I was like, these can't be real. These are 3D renders. They're so good. Yeah, the traders, the vendors. Noticeable difference between, I think, European shows and US shows. At the European show, like SMC, aftermarket was plentiful. There was a lot of that. A lot of fantasy figures, which obviously at SMC is a big thing. That's refreshing to see. Tabletop gaming, there's quite a lot of that there as well. But anything you needed was at that show. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the vendors go, I think where the big difference lies is that's where that industry is based, right? It's based in Europe. It's not based in the United States. We don't make it here practically. I mean, we have Alpine. Alpine's great. I love Alpine figures. I have a huge stack of them, but they're like really one of the only true like aftermarket, like, or the top aftermarket that you see at the big shows. And even then, Taesung doesn't go to every show. He goes to the AMP shows, which is great because he's based on the East Coast. But you don't always see Taesung at IPMS Nats. It'd be great if you did. I would love it. And we have a lot of decal manufacturers in the United States, but that's pretty much it. But you go to Europe, and that's where most of the fantasy figure guys are based. Most of the historical large scale figure guys are based. A lot of the cottage industry for AFE aftermarket's based there. So it's easy for them to get to the show. And it's, as an American there, it's good for me because yeah, we can get all that stuff here for the most part. Like most of it's not hard to get. It just takes a long time and it's more expensive getting it because we're getting it from half a world away. So it was neat just to be able to actually see all the stuff that like, oh yeah, I've seen most of this stuff like, on the internet, like on their websites or on Instagram, like, that these makers have. But yeah, being able to be like, oh crap, I've wanted this for a while. I'm just go ahead and grab this. It's right in front of me. I'm just going to grab it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think the vendor room's definitely different in the diversity of products. As you mentioned, a lot of that industry does reside in Europe. That said, I think a good example, so Phase Hanger Resin, a great aftermarket manufacturer here in the States, I think he would do extremely well at SMC. I put him on par with like Annie's. Like that was great to see. I'm Tom Arnish. I'm doing my best SCU commercial there. He was super nice. I went and talked to him for a little bit. An amazing professional stand. And I think what you notice at SMC that's a little bit different than other shows is the demo areas. A lot of the major vendors had people working, and I'm talking like at least a dozen people working on something throughout the hall, whether it's groundwork, airbrushing, painting figures, doing professional on a screen at their booth. That's what I found a little interesting as well, is it wasn't only that manufacturer, but a dedicated space to highlight their product. Again, whether it's paint, groundwork, technique, brushes, building models, like that was throughout the hall. And I thought it was cool. It was very, dare I say, trade showy in a sense in that regard, because it was extremely professional in some of the, and again, we see that at the IPMS Nationals. Good example is Squadron when they created their own hobby shop. It was amazing. At SMC, it was like little pockets of that everywhere. And you put the cool big like banner behind you. The one, it was Nico Galaxy, the fantasy figure vendor with their like neon light up sign and all of the professionally painted box art models there to help. Dude, it helps sell the product, just like Zaba Art. I mean, when you have the best in the world painting their own creations, it's like freaking inspiring. And I took probably just as many pictures in the traders and vendor hall club stands than I did in the contest or the exhibition hall, because it was constant throughout. And, the club tables is another good example. A lot of people working on models there, which I thought was great. Everybody is open and willing to talk to you. So I spent a lot of money, bottom line. So it was, and then I also became a Sherpa for Adam Wilder's book, brought 4 copies back. I had orders for a dozen, but I could not fit that many due to weight. So it was, I became a shipper for that. Adam Wilder's book, just truly amazing.
All right. Since kind of already talked about it, but let's talk about, I guess, just you and I, John, and of course, Jensen, you can chime in too, what we brought and how did it do? Why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, so I brought over 3 pieces. I brought over the Toyota FJ, which I call Toyota at War, the yellow FJ that we did for the AK group build. I brought over a Yog Panther I built over a year ago, the one that I took the IPMS Nats in Omaha. And then I also took over a Rubicon Models LVT. The LVT was put in the judge's display cabinet, and maybe I'll just touch on that briefly. Very honored to be asked to judge ordnance there, specifically armor, and I judged 2 classes of standard and 1 class of master. And for the display of the LVT, I put it in a case on the one side of the hall with all the other judges. And, when you walk up and put your stuff in a case next to Mike Rinaldi, Roger Herkmans, Pete Usher, Jerome Veen. I mean, all of these names, it's an honor. It's truly humbling. So that was one of the pieces I brought to display with that. And then I entered the other 2 in masters category for the large scale vehicles, that is, and was very fortunate to come away with a bronze. To have your name called up and to stand next to people that you've admired for so long, I'm still on cloud 9, and I'm already thinking next year, like, what am I bringing next? How am I going to differentiate and just be more part of that environment? So yeah, that's me. TJ, what about yourself?
So I managed to squeeze in 6 pieces in my, I have it's made by Battle Foam. It's called an ammo box. I bought the Magna Rack insert for it. So it essentially turns your soft case into like a hard case on the inside. So I brought six pieces. I brought 2 figures. I brought my French sailor from the Gallipoli campaign, 65 millimeter figure. One of my favorite pieces. I love it. I brought a fantasy bust called that I called Days Gone By. It's the Alternity Miniatures Post-Apocalyptic Girl. I brought 2 Machine and Krieger suits, my Leopard and my A8R8, and then I brought Here Kitty Kitty, my M4A176 3/5 scale Sherman that I brought to Nats last year, that I then mounted to a base and glued the figures on. So I did well. I can't really complain. I snagged a bronze in Fantasy Painters standard. And the way they break it out, so they have painters and open. Open is like you sculpt your own stuff or you heavily convert stuff, or painters, which is just stock figures, which is what my stuff is entered in. I snagged silver for the French sailor, which I'm particularly proud of. Also in standard historical painters. Nothing for the Machine and Krieger stuff. That was in Rise of the Machines. There's a new class, which that was okay. I'm not gonna lie, a little disappointed, but whatever. I nagged other awards. And then I also placed bronze in category 40, large scale, 48 scale and above military vehicles masters. That one was, yeah, that's the big one to me. I'm happy with the other awards. I think it's great. I was honored to place in those other categories, but yeah, placing in category 40, man, that was awesome. I was shocked, like legitimately shocked. I was probably floating a foot over the ground all day. As soon as I think the room opens at 10 in the morning. So you don't know if you medaled until the room opens and they put a little sticker on there. And I kind of hang back for a minute because I'm like, I'll just wait till it thins out. So it was probably like 20 after 10. I wandered in there, and I think Jensen was standing in there by my work, and I walked in. I was like, I saw it. I saw the sticker. I was like, I can't believe it. I was like, I really can't believe it. Oh my God. Yeah, it was great. I was very, very happy with that. I'm very proud of that medal. That medal is worth its weight in gold to me.
For sure. Yeah. One thing to note, it's important to note what is the contest, the exhibition. It is gold, silver, bronze, the true open system. I was a judge, very fortunate. There was around 50 of us, and 50 judges covered over 2,300 models in that amount of time. I think we were in there probably like 3-4 hours tops. But what's interesting is on the ordnance side specifically, there were 75 entries in AFV Masters. For those entries, you had 3 golds, 5 silvers, and 8 bronze. So 16 medals across that category alone. I think that's important to emphasize, because for the open system, especially at SMC at the masters level, it's the real deal. And to be honest, even in standard too. I judged standard, very fortunate to do that. Took it as a high honor, and I judged with John Spud Murphy and Sven Frisch, and it was awesome. It was a really good time. And I think what you'll learn is it's definitely not a participation trophy. The open system is interesting. I really enjoyed the judges meeting. I think what I want to hit on with the judges meeting was there was always, what do you default to? It's always, what did the modeler do great and how can we reward them? There was never a moment during that judges meeting or when we were judging that tearing down or calling out flaws. It was all about, okay, what did they do well? And is this being done well to the level of a certain, recognition status, I guess you could say. But the judges meeting was really, really well done. They talked about, the principles that Shep said, Shep said, not Shep, Shep, in terms of, a juried exhibition. You're here to reward the modeler, appreciate their work on the table. In the open system, the way they do it at SMC, and I believe at MMSI as well, and a few others, you look at the entrant for that category. So for instance, we judged one category where an individual had 4 entries. There's 2 options. You can either pick their best piece and reward it, or you can look at the collection as a whole and reward it on that level of accomplishment. So in some cases, we took what was best for the modeler. If we want to reward a specific model because it's achieved, let's just say a silver, as opposed to his other models that maybe drug it down, we just picked that piece. Where in other cases, this work is highly consistent across all of these, it's rewarded a silver. So I think that's an important distinction. Like I said, in those 75 models that were judged, 16 medals, and then 3 judges did that at the master's level. And that was really, that's just how they do it. And it was a great judges meeting. And then I'll also hit on the way we logged the results was really, really cool. It was through a system called Emperor. It's a software system that they developed themselves. Very easy to use on my phone. It's not even an app. It's a web-based browser. So I scan a QR code for that category. The category numbers all pop up. There's no names on the entry forms or on the models themselves. You don't know who built them. In some cases you do, because they've been spread all over Facebook and social media, but a name never comes in the picture. And you simply just click on the entry number, pulls up their entries, and you can score them, and then it'll check them off. And it's incredibly easy. I found it and it's all in real time too. So there's no paper trail, just incredibly simple. And I think it makes their life easy on that end too, in terms of displaying and talking about who won during that award ceremony.
But kind of going back to what you said, the standard level is legit, right? Like it's standard is a little bit of a misnomer. Yeah, like I was humbled to have placed in standard and figures, because the work that I saw in the standard figure category was amazing. Yep. To me, it was like master level. I'm like, what is the difference here? Like, this is really good. Yeah, it was wow, just it was crazy. The whole thing, just the whole experience. I've not made it a secret that being awarded at an international show is a bucket list item of mine. I don't build models to win medals, but I like winning medals with the models that I built. Yeah, going home with hardware from SMC was it was a big deal to me. I needed it badly for my own issues I got going on. It was a real kick in the ass for me in the best possible way.
Yeah, I would agree there. It's certainly motivating. And you mentioned difference between standard and master. I will say, judging standard, we felt that, to win a gold in standard would be something that would medal in masters. I think that's the best way to think about, how do I advance from the next stage? What's that standard? How do I get over the hump? The hump is, if you enter in a certain category and you can medal in the one above you, boom, you're getting gold and you're going up, and you'll play in that other category next year. So just an overall, kind of speechless, kind of incredible experience. They released the dates for next year. The show will be October 19th and 20th. Definitely put it on your calendar. I believe we're all going to be there, and we're going to try to convince Scott to go as well. I think before we end this, I want to talk about logistics, because people might not understand, okay, it's in Eindhoven. How do I get there? I'll talk from the standpoint of, where I came from. So Denver, I flew Denver to Chicago to Amsterdam. I love flying to Europe. You take the red eye essentially, and you wake up in the morning and you go. There's a couple options to get down to Eindhoven, and one of which is train. You can go from Schiphol down to Eindhoven. Actually, the contest itself is a little outside of city center, so you'd have to do a little walking. But I will say, renting a car in the Netherlands, easy peasy. So I picked up a car at Schiphol, drove down to Eindhoven, went to a few museums, spent the night. Next morning, woke up and picked up TJ and Jackson, which came nonstop from DC, I believe. So that was super easy.
Yeah, flying from the East Coast, it's easy to get there. All the major airports you can get a red eye direct into Schiphol, like Jackson and I did. We flew red eye, left in the evening around dinner time, got there 7 o'clock in the morning, ready to go. Tired, but ready to go.
I think the best part when I went to pick them up, they're like, "What kind of car are you driving?" I'm like, "A black 4-door hatchback."
Yeah, and you walk outside. Does everyone in the Netherlands drive a black 4-door hatchback? Because that's what it felt like. It's like, oh, okay, cool. It's the car literally everyone has.
It was great. So I picked you up, and then again, I only recommend everyone to think about a rental car because it gives you maximum flexibility, and especially for us when we were limited on time, I think it was the best move. And in total there was 3 of us that rented a car. I think split between us it's under $100 a piece.
Yeah.
And when you think about one-way trains, I think it was around $30 to get from Schiphol down to Eindhoven. Maybe you grab an Uber, you have the inconvenience factor too, but with gas and rental, the rental was $130 for 4 or 5 days. And it gave, like I said, it gave us flexibility because as soon as I picked up the car, we actually hot-tailed it over to the National Military Museum, which was friggin' amazing, and met Sam Dwyer there, James Blackwell, and it was awesome. And TJ now wants to build a MiG-21 because of it.
Another MiG-21.
Another MiG-21.
Yeah, they have a MiG-21. Oh, crap. I don't remember which version it is. Edward makes a kit of it. I talked to Justin Lentz about it. We decided, was it the PF? I can't remember. They have one there. It's in terrible condition. But it looks so cool. It's all pitted and got moss and crap growing all over it, and it's just old and really, really cool. I took a bunch of pictures of it. Sam Dwyer and I both did. Yeah, I want to build that exact MiG, and I think you can get decals for that. I'm pretty sure I saw it somewhere. So yeah, that's on my not bucket list, on my things to do list, which is ever increasing.
Yeah, and then after that museum, we went over to Arnhem and saw the Airborne Museum there for British First Airborne.
Yep.
Checked out John Frost Bridge.
Yep.
What was really great on the way home back to Eindhoven, Jackson actually found 2 Band of Brothers locations, one of which is the archway that Dick Winters stands in front of. There's a famous picture, so we all went there. And then in addition to that, we also went to the Crossroads where Dick Winters.
So that's the first time I've ever been to a World War II battle site, right? And to go to one as iconic as that. I mean, there's a whole freaking episode of Band of Brothers about it. Like, we stood at the spot that Dick Winters bolted in the open like 70 yards up a berm and confronted an SS soldier. If you there's an interview where he talks about that, right? So the episode isn't entirely accurate. They all ran at the same time, but he ran faster than everyone else, and he doesn't know why. Like he talks about that, and he's like, I had a surge of adrenaline, and I looked behind me and I'm ahead of everybody. He's like, and I run to the top of the berm and I see him standing there, and you took aim at him, and we looked at each other, and he's like, the thing I remember is he smiled, and then I shot him. And I'm like, we stood at that exact spot. And then the rest of Easy Company runs up on the berm, and it's essentially a shooting gallery. They ambushed 2 full companies of SS troops and suffered 1 casualty, or 1 KIA. There was some more people injured, and I think killed like 80 of them, and then captured a bunch of the other ones. Like, it was so cool to stand in that spot. I'm like, wow, like, this is where they did that. Like, I can't, like, the brass balls on those guys. And you look down, that's all that Century had to do is walk up that berm 5 feet, and they could have got all of Easy Company out in the open. I mean, they could have just ended them right there. But yeah, just one of those dumb luck things. And I mean, it's Dick Winters. He's like one of the best. They still teach like Breakcourt Manor in the Army as to how to attack a numerically superior dug in position. Like, that's the type of tactician he was. Like, it's just cool. Oh, God, it was so cool.
Yeah. And then, like you said, that berm, and then even the higher berm where, you definitely, Jackson's pointed out, during the episode, this is where that MG-42 is firing down the road to the CP. You could see where, the German vehicles were going. They had to have recorded the episode nearly on that spot or recreated it because it was very similar to what we saw on the ground there.
I'm pretty sure it was filmed there.
Yeah.
Because you can see the little culvert under the berm in the one shot where they show Damian Lewis like running ahead of everyone. Right before he gets up that berm, you can see the little culvert, and that was there. So we saw that. So I'm pretty sure they filmed that at that exact location. If not, they did a really good job of recreating it.
Yeah, seriously. And then after that, we hightailed it back to Eindhoven, checked in the hotel, and then we got Sir Jensen from the airport, and the party was on.
Yeah, the rest is history.
So I just tell people how to get there from the UK. Really easy. So if you're kind of in the Midlands of the North, Manchester does a Ryanair flight direct to Eindhoven Airport, which is a 15-minute drive from the venue. Really nice. 2-hour walk. Everyone thinks, 15 minutes, I can walk that. It's not. It's because you're on a motorway or a highway. So 15 minutes from the venue. That's really good if you can fly into Eindhoven direct. It's a very small regional airport, so customs is really quick. The airport's small. It's really easy to go to and from and through. If not, you can fly. I know EasyJet do a lot of flights to Amsterdam, and again, like the guys, they hired a car, went down. Or if you want to do the drive, you can drive there through the tunnel, cross the channel in the car, or take it by train on Eurostar. So if you're from the UK, you have quite a few options to get there, but it's really, really easy place to get to if you're in Europe and the UK.
So we're going to be wrapping up this episode soon. One other person I do want to note that we had the opportunity to meet and get to know was Stephen Ortmans. The dude is awesome. His work is fantastic. It was so nice to talk to him, get to know him, and his lovely partner. Just wanted to give him a shout out. He was super nice and can't wait to see him again. Can't wait to see his work again. So major shout out to Stephen there. I think one of the last things we'll talk about, as a lot of you know, Mike Rinaldi dropped a video on SMC and gave his impression of, from his standpoint, judging at the masterclass level. And it's about a 30-minute video and really talks about his perspective, brings in some of that lineage of Euro militaire back in the early 2000s. And I think what we want to do is just talk a little bit about what he said and kind of, do a little analysis and just kind of give our opinions, dare I say. And I'll kick it over to TJ to start us off.
So I'll start with this. What he said isn't necessarily wrong, right? His big argument is there was no one there really pushing the envelope in modeling. And to a degree, to a level, I agree. There wasn't anyone there really pushing to the next level. And my counter to that, I'm not on the bleeding edge. I freely admit that. But you know what? I place in that category. So I feel like I have the right to say something about it a little bit is, well, what is the next level? Because I've been building tanks for 10 years and no one's done anything different now than when I started 10 years ago, right? The last seismic shift was Phil Sestinka's, sorry, I probably butchered his last name, in his hairspray ship Panzer IV. I honestly believe, and this is just one man's opinion, that was the last quantum leap in scale modeling. And that was 2006, 2004, around mid-aughts. So, my argument is, okay, so you said no one's pushing the envelope. Well, what is it? What is the next step? Obviously, if you had that knowledge, you could do it, but I don't see it. I don't see what else anyone can really do other than just get better at what we already do. And really, yeah, what Phil did back then at Euro with the Panzer IV, we all do that now. Not to say that Phil's not an amazing modeler. He is. He's one of the best. Everyone involved in armor modeling owes a great debt of gratitude to Phil and what he was able to do. And frankly, even to Mike with really pushing what you can do with oils and oil paint rendering. Like, we owe a lot to them. We really do. But yeah, to sit there and say, well, no one's doing it better or pushing it, like, I just don't, I don't agree with that entire sentiment. And like I said, my counter is, well, what is there next to do? Because you see what these guys are doing, and Mike's insistence was there was no gold medal originally before it was addressed, which I think he talks about in the video. There was no gold medal models. And I just call nonsense to that, because no one's pushing the envelope doesn't mean what isn't there already isn't gold medal, right? And again, he's right, but also wrong. I'm not a gold medalist there. I freely admit that. I would like to be. I'm going to try to be one day, but I see what the guys are doing. That's what I try to do. So, when I heard there was no gold medals awarded, I'm like, if what's out there is not gold medal work, then what the F is? Like, what is it? Because I don't see it. And, I'm not the end all be all and what's a gold medal model. I wasn't a judge, but like, I'm immersed in the world. What is, you tell me, and no one can. So yeah, I wasn't too happy with that. I met Mike. We talked for a couple minutes. He was cool to me, and I like Mike. But yeah, I think that was a little off base. And again, not that he was wrong necessarily, but he was. And
Yeah.
Again, just TJ's opinion. I'm not saying, oh, Mike, you're wrong. You shouldn't say that. I know he's free to say that. And it's good. I'm glad that he did, because it really does spark the dialogue, and I think that's important.
I think one thing is I didn't enter. So I not that I don't have any dog in this fight, but I was in the competition, so I can't really comment on what was. I mean, I saw the work. I know what is and isn't gold master standard, and I think what did get gold master in the end was thoroughly deserved and was always that from the beginning. I think a point is, and this goes for any walk of life, any hobby, any industry, is if you feel that things aren't being pushed to the next level, it's like, well, if you think that, what are you doing to push it? And if you think what there isn't to that level or good enough, then what are you doing to show off what that level is? Are you providing work that is that next level? And that's really just my 2 cents. Is if you are of the mind that I believe what there wasn't, and I don't say good enough, then okay, put something out there that is. And that's just my 2 cents about it.
Yeah. I wanted to make that point, and I kind of held off on it, and I'm glad you did. But yeah, I'll say it. If you don't think that was gold medal, then you show me what the hell is, frankly. And I mean that in all sincerity, not to be a douchebag or anything. Show me, because I want to know, what to do so I can do that, right? Because I feel like if I can do what like Pete Usher does, or Spud or Lester Plaskett, guys that I think should be gold medals. I frankly think that Pete Usher should have got a gold medal for his knocked out, whatever that thing was, SPG. That thing is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I look at that, I'm like, holy cow, I want to do that. Because to me, like that was gold. Lester's M1, amazing. It rightfully deserved to be gold. And to originally say that's not gold medal worthy, well, then you show me what is, because that's what I want to do, and I think that's gold medal. So you show me. Don't just tell me. Show me that. This is modeling. You don't just tell me what to do. Show me what to do. Put it out there. I want to see it, because if I see it, then I'm going to want to do it. But if it's this nebulous idea, that's worth. You can crap in one hand and wish in the other, and which one's worth more. Show me the actual thing. I want to see the physical thing, not just say, oh yeah, it needs to be better. Like, anyone can say that.
Yeah, and I think too, the time, in all honesty, has changed so much since the early 2000s. We talk about, Phil's Panzer IV as kind of a paradigm shift. Look at the ability to push it back then, and the amount of knowledge being shared online. Unfortunately, you could find a sliver of these things, whether it's through hyperscale, missing links. You're predominantly relying on magazines. So to push it back then, from my perspective, it was a little bit more difficult, where today you are flooded with an amount of information that your learning curve is exponential, where before you're piecing things together from mag articles, maybe getting a forum post and having somebody reply. But today the access to information it's a quantum leap. And it's everything from the quality of magazines that, when I say quality mags, AFE Modeler continues to publish the best and be able to convey that work in a way that you can, obtain it. Mike Ronaldi is a great example. Tankard set the standard for learning, from a print perspective, how to know and kind of walk through the how and why in those techniques. In addition to that, you have social media, whether it's Instagram Reels, Facebook posts, and the biggest of all, YouTube. And being able to literally log on there, see people like Panzermeister, Night Shift, Boyle, Plasmo, everybody who's, I'll say, pushing it, because they are. You can get that in an instant and be able to learn and grasp it and move really, really fast. So everybody has that access to information, where I think in the early 2000s, it was a very tight group of people with that type of approach and information, where now it's free, it's democratized, dare I say. And the ability to absorb it, grasp it, and kick ass at it is a lot shorter. So yeah, it's just the playing field, dare I say, is level, where everybody has the opportunity. And to get back to what TJ said on the last episode, where natural talent is one thing, but everybody can get to a certain level by learning, by practicing, and just by executing. And I think the ability to do that today is far far more obtainable just because of the wealth of knowledge out there and the ability to talk to people too. The ease of information, whether it's public or private, it's a game changer. And you see that evolution and growth throughout many people in this hobby.
Yeah. Touching on that, we were talking about that before we started recording, and I'll repeat it now, my take on what you said, because I agree with you 100%. And I agree with you because I'll go ahead and preface this. Some people may think this sounds arrogant of me or conceited of me, and that's fine. Okay, I'm a good modeler, right? And I understand that. I'm a good modeler because I had good teachers. I've been building tanks since 2014, so 9 years. And I went from never building a tank to placing an SMC in 9 years. And I was able to do that because the wealth of information out there, right? This isn't 2004, 2006, that time frame that Mike mentions, the guys that have been doing this for 30 years. Like, I wasn't part of that. I didn't grow up with that. I learned in the way the younger guys are. I'm 40. I'm learning the way Jackson and Zach are learning. Guys in their 20s. I grew up in modeling the way they did. That's why those guys are able to perform so well at shows and build such amazing models, because we're able to stand on the backs of the guys that did come before us. And it's not because we're naturally good at it. It's everything's right there, right? So the level of quality that everyone can do is that much higher now. I've heard that from more than one person and from guys that have been doing this their whole lives, even longer than Mike, and have said the same thing. Like, yeah, we're all better. It's not even a question. So yeah, I like to consider myself proof that I got pretty decent in a short amount of time because I had a lot of people to learn from in real time. On top of that, not post a picture on a missing links thread and hope someone within the next couple of days responds to it. Like, no, I'm able to go to the person directly and say, hey, I've messaged Mike back and forth when I was doing Last Chance. I'm like, Mike, tell me what I need to do better. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? You weren't able to do that back then. So now, the bar is raised for what we can all do. And like I said, yes, it's true that no one's really, really, truly pushing it, but the bar is already so high. It's a little bit of a conundrum, really, because what else can we do? What else can you do?
Yeah. And I do think people are pushing it in their own right. I mean, from their personal style, from their approach, I truly believe what was on the table there and a lot of what we see online, it is modelers pushing their limits. I guess I'm just a little confused on going back to what you said. What does that look like? What does pushing it look like today? Is it night shift? Because I'll tell you what, every video I watch from him, he talks about a new technique, new approach, whether it's composition, or a technique. Like I'm like, dang, a great example. You've mentioned his name. We've talked about him, Pete Usher. I mean, if that ain't pushing, I don't know what is. His self-propelled gun. And, it was great when we talked to him because pushing it, he put that carabiner strap, the blue carabiner strap on the side of that door. And he talked about the philosophy behind it. He's like, I want you to look at this and it's going to pull you into the interior that I scratch built. And he's walking us through it. And I'm like, this is like meta level stuff. And it's that approach, that pushing it, thinking about those little things. Because when I'm building my little Toyota FJ, I'm like, oh, this red toolbox looks cool. I'm just going to throw it in the back, or I'll paint this blanket blue. Where there's a methodical and deliberate nature behind his models, and many others there, to be honest. But Pete is, when I think of like, yes, that meta, like very, very deep thought, that's pushing it in my mind. Because I'm like, holy cow, I'm not even thinking about that. And then it's the techniques to go with it. And you look at a good example, his self-propelled gun, the finish, the complexity, it's mind blowing. And here I am like, wow. I'm taking notes. I'm talking to the guy, going to dinner with him. Like that in my mind, I'm like, ooh, this is pushing it. And this is not only pushing, and maybe I'll just, my last comment on all this, the modelers that entered in Masters and throughout the competition standard, they're pushing, but I'll also state they're pulling as well. They are pulling the hobby. They're pulling the modeling community. They're pulling us online right now with them, and they're sharing their work. They're being open about it. And not only they're pushing, but they're pulling. And I think that's important to acknowledge as well, is these folks are doing it and willing to share it. And I love it. I'm there with a notepad and a camera every step of the way.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is, for me personally, placing in Masters was both the best thing that's ever happened to me and the worst. The best thing because I felt like I made it, just full stop. I felt I was talking to Rick Lawler the other day, and I was like, I felt legitimized. It's silly to think that a little coin will do that, but that's what it did to me. It meant a lot to me. But at the same time, I'm like, oh damn, I got a bronze this year. That means I better at least get a bronze next year, hopefully get a silver. It would suck to go and not go home with anything. So it's both pushing me forward, and I gotta grab behind me and pull myself along with it. I have to physically pull myself to where my mind is taking me, because that's it. I saw the standard, and now I know where I am, and now I know where I need to go. And now I got to get my ass there, and it's not going to be easy. I'm going to love it, but it's not going to be easy.
For sure.
Okay, well, I think that was a really good rundown of Scale Model Challenge from Eindhoven 2023. I mean, I know it's only been an hour or just over. I felt like we could have talked about this for another 6. There's so many people we could have mentioned, and unfortunately we can't mention absolutely everyone at the show. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that this has been one of the greatest shows we've ever attended. It's one we will certainly be attending again, and we really hope that this, if not everything else you've seen, encourages you to also attend Scale Model Challenge, hopefully in 2024. So we hope you've enjoyed this, and I shall bid you farewell.
Boom.
Okay, so really hope you all enjoyed that. I think it comes across how much we all really, really, really enjoyed SMC, and we hope more of you can make it next year. We hope more of the Posse can make it next year and see more of you and get to know more of you amazing listeners and see some fantastic models. It were, again, a big shout out to Robert Krumbecky and the team, because it was just an incredible, outstanding show, and really can't wait till 2024.
Before we get into Posse merch, I just wanted to give a shout out to Stefan and Miranda and the Scale Models for Veterans. They just did a 48-hour group build, and also, I believe, raised about €1,000 or so to all those who participated and donated to that. Thank you very much. It's a great cause. Obviously, Scale Models for Veterans is connected to Models for Heroes, and both of those organizations are doing great work that the Posse really, really supports and believes in. So anyway, great job, guys. Well, it's that time, everyone. Jensen, what time is it?
You know what time I think it is? I think it's merch time.
It is merch time. And if you would like to rep the Posse, you can check out all of the awesome merch over on the Triple P Spring page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, or what else, Jensen?
The world famous lounge trousers.
That's right. Absolutely, Jensen. We have some new designs as well, and you can order all of your stylish Plastic Posse merch on the web at plastic-posse-podcast.creator-spring.com, or one more time, Jensen,
www. My mouth went on autopilot there. www.loungetrousers.com.
Thanks for that, Jensen. I certainly made just a big order and can't wait to rep the Posse at the local shows. And we encourage everyone to as well. And if we see you there, we'll definitely give you something special. The first of which is hot off the press from Stephen Reed. He's graciously stepped up to volunteer his services to run a group build. This time, it's all around Wilder's latest book, Layering Techniques by AK Interactive, and the turret that was released with it, which is the ISU 152 1944 model. But fear not, you don't need either to participate. This group build is going to be open to everyone with open subjects that are, here are the bounding box. Soviet/Russian what-if subjects from 1914 to present. So it is a big canvas for you to paint a picture of anything from World War I all the way up to present day. So we encourage all of you to participate. This is, again, celebrating Wilder's latest book and leveraging the techniques that he loves to go into in that book. I have a copy. All of us picked up a copy at SMC. Fantastic weathering resource, and also a lot of the construction at the beginning as well around photo etch and his techniques for texturing armor, shell impacts. it's a must for an armor modeler. So what are the dates? We're kicking that off on November 1st. So that is 2 days from when this recording is taking place. And it's going to conclude on April 11th at the AMPS National Convention in South Bend, Indiana. I think there's intent to maybe have a little group display there. So we, the Posse, will be repping. There's going to be a bunch of us there, I think. So we encourage you, if you are participating, if you can bring it to the show, fantastic. If not, be sure to share it in the Plastic Posse group. We're not going to do a special group for this, just like the facade one. We're going to keep it all in-house at the Plastic Posse group, just to bolster the content that's going on there. And I think it's the best place because we all hang out there anyway, and it's one less page to manage, or group, I should say. So that's one thing I want to hit on. And then also, I want to announce that the 72-hour group build over Thanksgiving weekend will be hosted by Jim Bates and friends. So look for more details on that. We also want to thank our sponsors for this episode, that none of this is possible without them and you, the listeners, but I definitely want to call out Tankcraft, AK Interactive, and Tamiya USA. Your contributions to us and the modeling community are greatly valued. And again, this is not possible without you. And lastly, and certainly not least, I hinted at it, but the supporters, you, the Patreons, the people that contribute online, it's the most important thing that we do in terms of sharing content is working with you. Your support really motivates all of us online, to keep this podcast going every 2 weeks. So please feel free to write in, tell us your thoughts, good or bad. Let us know what you'd like us to expand into. We're always open to any idea, any genre. And yeah, we just love hearing from you all, certainly motivating. And then again, you can do all of this from a suggestion standpoint, comment, critique to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay happy, build models, and yeehaw!
Nice.
Absolutely fantastic.
If you would like to support the Triple P and become one of our Plastic Posse Outriders, well, it's super easy. You can join with over 135 other Plastic Posse Outriders by simply going on over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast, and setting up a recurring donation there. These contributions really help offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There's 3 different tiers of support, and they start at only $1 a month. There are some great benefits to being an Outrider. You get early access to our podcasts. You get premium access to the hosts, the chance to appear on a podcast, and other exclusive PPP content and events at hobby shows.
Let's begin by recognizing our amazing deputy marshals. These guys really make a difference and play an active role in bringing the posse to all of you every 2 weeks. We sincerely thank them for their support. Casey Gray, Mike Norris, Brad Ralston, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Brian Kreiner, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, The Voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Eidenwell, Bruce the Model Noob, Eric Baker, Eric DeGleish, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Ked Kawahara, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Workala, B Colt 1911, John Everett, Josh Buck, Thomas Bannock, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnson, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knopfel, and JC Osborne.
Let's also recognise our excellent posse foremen. These foremen are outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand. James, Steve, William, Rob, Tim, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, George, Gary, Warhoff Models, Drew, Ross, Eric, Len, Cliff, Eric, Mike, Papa Steve, Red Beach One Studios, MD Models, JV, Damien, Kieran, Cody, Sunkist, Nukeman Mike, Greg, JAK, Jack, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul, What's the Deal with Eyebones Models, Mr. Grizz, Jackson, MAK Armor, Chris, Lee, and Jamie.
And of course, our other Posse Outriders. We appreciate each of you, including our newest Outrider, Mark Bradshaw. Thanks, Mark, for your support, and welcome to the Posse. It would help us if each of you would please consider posting a review of the Triple P on the podcast platform you use. Each 5-star review that is posted helps other modelers find the Plastic Posse. Also, if you haven't liked or followed the Triple P Facebook page, Plastic Posse group page, please do. See y'all soon. And if you haven't already, remember to hit the model bench and enjoy the greatest hobby out there, scale modeling.